Media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
What is going on, y'all? Welcome to the Mission Ready Men briefing, where masculinity is still respected and faith has not been neutered. Today is Thursday, March 5th, 2026. And this is not just politics. It is spiritual warfare and suicidal empathy that is dressed up as progress. So we're done pretending. We're done pulling our punches, and we are not going to apologize. And if you're looking for rainbows and unicorns and participation trophies, you are in the way wrong place. So today's story is actually quite simple. America has acted decisively against Iran's regime during Operation Epic Fury, and the reaction in Washington was predictably hysterical. And US leadership has projected strength. Whether you agree with it or not, that is just the fact. And the media and progressive politicians have erupted in panic, outrage, and of course, narrative spin, as they usually do. And when America shows strength abroad, the meltdown at home is always a very revealing aspect of it, if not the most revealing part of it. So let's get after it. Now, before we really get into it, the Pentagon announced the names of all of our fallen service members. I think I have their pictures. So let's, I want to pay tribute to them because they died in service to this country, and they deserve all of the respect that they earned. And so we have, these were the first four that died in service to this country, that made the ultimate sacrifice. Sergeant First Class Nicole Amore, Sergeant First Class Noah Titjens, Sergeant Declan Cody, and Captain Cody Cork. Those were the first four. And two more were announced after they made their made the notifications to their families. And they were Major Jeffrey O'Brien and Chief Warrant Officer 3, Robert M. Marzon. And so we just honor them, and may they rest in peace. All right. So we're now 6 days into Operation Epic Fury. There have been multiple coordinated strikes over all of Iran's military assets, we have achieved pretty much 100% air superiority over Iranian airspace. We've pretty much destroyed their navy. The the leadership, such as it is pretty much decimated. And while we haven't achieved the goal, obviously, yet, but the goal is within sight, and that is to degrade their ability to project force and inflict whatever damage they want to do. I mean, their whole goal is death to America and death to Israel. And so we are trying to make sure that that does not happen. Now, the Pentagon released some footage of of a submarine-launched torpedo strike that sank one of their prize ships, probably their prize ship. And of course, they're yammering about how we're going to pay dearly for it and all this nonsense. But this just further proves that there is no military that can touch us. I mean, we have, and we're going to get into it a little more deeply here later on. But we have such military superiority that once this is over, and I've said this before, this is President Trump pretty much resetting the global order. But I want to play this because this is outstanding. Let's take a look at this. Here we go. That is one of our nuclear submarines taking out an Iranian ship in I believe it was the Indian Ocean. I could be wrong at the location. But yeah, that is us taking it to the Iranian Navy. I mean, I don't even know how many ships they have left, if they have any. I mean, most of them are in the bottom of the ocean. There was a line in one of the stories I read that said that future Iranian ships were going to have glass bottoms so they could see the rest of their fleet at the bottom of the ocean. Obviously, I just thought that was funny. But we have pretty much dominated this entire. It's just remarkable to see just how vastly superior. And I mean, we all knew this. I mean, let's be honest, we all knew this, but just to see it in action is outstanding. So we have our military capability just far outpacing anything they have. And some of what they have was provided by China, and we're going to get into that in a little bit as well. But we also took out their senior leadership. I mean, being the Ayatollah right now, that is, somebody said, I believe last night on the Edge of Liberty that it was a temp job at best. And so, I mean, it's really only a matter of time, barring some way unforeseen events that just I don't see any way that happens. The Iranian state media obviously is turning everyone into all those dead leaders into martyrs. Tehran is selling wolf tickets about retaliation for the ship and everything else that's going on. But the evidence, the evidence on the ground just completely destroys that narrative. They're trying to project strength, but they just don't have it. They just don't have it. Iran's leadership is trying to look defiant, but they're going to have to decide just how much pain they can actually endure and survive. And it's not much more. The Pentagon briefing from Hegseth and General Kane, they gave us a clear message that the mission is not yet accomplished. They still have some asymmetric warfare capabilities, but not much. Not much. It's like I said, it's only a matter of time. And the proxy networks that they had set up that may have at one point wanted to side with them, they have pissed off the entire region. They have pissed off the entire region. And now they have the Kurds invading them with ground attacks. This is most likely not going to end well for Iran. This is a campaign that is probably going to go on. I mean, and here's the other thing. What always frustrated me about previous administrations and previous campaigns is they would show this vast superiority and then they would back off and let the opponent regroup and try diplomatic strategies going forward. Meanwhile, they just said, yeah, we can take that. It's like when you see people in a fight and there's one or two hits and then the person walks away and it's like, well, you didn't finish. That person's going to come back and sucker punch you. And so we have to remain focused and finish this job finally. And that's what I like about Hegseth and Kane. They are not celebrating early. They are not pulling out. They are staying until the job is done and planning the next move. Unlike previous military leadership. And this does come at a cost, as I mentioned at the top. 6 service members have been killed in this operation, several more wounded. It is the price that we have to pay, unfortunately, for deterrence. It is the price that we have to pay to project strength. But let me tell you something. The price of weakness is much, much higher. Deterrence is not an eloquent speech. Sometimes deterrence is a crater. And that is what Iran is finally learning after 47 years of aggression. Now, what happened on that, or what is happening on that battlefield, really is only the first layer, the first level, because Iran is at the center of a global energy system and infrastructure. Oil routes, the regional power balance, and the Chinese energy supply, which means that what's going on right now is not just going to stay in Iran. It is going to have ripple effects all over the globe. So when the United States moves in such a decisive manner in a place like Iran, the entire world is going to be forced to recalculate. And as I said, this is bigger than the battlefield. The submarine strikes, the missile sites destroyed, leadership degraded, other assets degraded. But this is not finished. And focusing only on the battlefield misses the big picture. And there is a much bigger picture, as I alluded to earlier. Iran is kind of the linchpin in this fight. There is, and I was reading about this. I read a few articles and I saw a commentary from Glenn Beck about this. And there is a growing alignment, and I was not really taken aback by it, but it's not something that I had really heard much about before. But there is a growing alignment among China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea, and some national security analysts have dubbed it CRINK: China, Russia, Iran, North Korea. It's not like BRICS or NATO, but these countries do share some interests. They have shared enemies like us, and they share technology. And as I was researching this, I came across this particular clip, and this was fascinating. This is Peter Schweitzer talking about how this hurts China.
It now means we have a chokehold on the strait. Look, assume that China wanted to move on Taiwan, right? There's a military response, but now we have a massive energy response, which is we simply don't allow any tankers to ship oil from the Persian Gulf through the Strait of Hormuz. We can do it. It might have been a little bit dicey had we not taken out the Iranians. That's roughly half of their oil. 40 to 50% of their oil is now suddenly not available to them. So those are enormous methodologies. And look at what happens in terms of military technology, Jesse. China provided their most advanced air defense capabilities to Iran. We completely destroyed them. They didn't shoot down one American or Israeli plane. This is reminiscent of 1982 when the Israelis flying F-15s went up against the Syrians flying MiGs, and the Israelis beat them 81 aircraft to 0. What happened after that? They couldn't give the MiGs away. So China now has the problem that their military technology is not recognized as being up to par to the United States. That's
That is amazing to hear. I absolutely love hearing that. And it just reinforces the Pentagon's contention that we have achieved air superiority. I mean, the B-52 Stratofortress, some people call it the Stratosaurus because it's so old, is flying over Iranian airspace with impunity. That aircraft is slow. It can't get out of the way of anything. And they're just flying like it's nothing because there is nothing that can take that aircraft down anymore. If it ever could, honestly, given what we just heard about China's air defense systems. And I know a lot of that has to do with the fact that we took a lot of those sites out. Yes, I understand that. But the fact is, we have asserted our dominance over Iranian airspace, and that's something to be absolutely celebrated. So there's that. There's China's obvious lackluster performance in the air defense space, but and he said it was 40 to 50% of China's oil. I don't think it's that much. He's the only one I've ever heard say that. Everything I've read says that it's somewhere between 12 and 15%. I've seen some people say up to 20, but it's usually around 12 to 15% of their oils, which is not nothing. That's not nothing. That is a significant, especially when you consider how they get that oil at a discount because of the sanctions against Iran. So there's that. And so we've disrupted their oil exports. China now has to they now have to scramble to replenish that supply. It's going to hurt their ambitions in terms of attacking Taiwan because they need energy, they need oil. That, but that's going to put more economic pressure on. And then their Iran is well, they kind of have locked down the Strait of Hormuz. We'll see how long that lasts. And it's not even so much with their force. I mean, it's become dangerous, and so insurers are not insuring those tankers, and so they're just not flowing right now. We'll see how long that lasts. The instability that we're seeing there affects the global economy. Iran doesn't just pump oil. It is kind of the valve of the world's economy. And this is not going to last long. They don't have the ability to prolong it at all. So we'll see. But this also affects Russia. Iran has been providing Russia with Shahed drones, which they've been using against Ukraine. They're not going to be able to provide any more of those. And so with the Iranian technology decimated, the production gone, Russia's drone warfare that went through Tehran, what are they going to do now? They may have some contingencies, but those contingencies aren't going to last very long. And Russia's own strategists have admitted this. They know it. This has weakened Russia's position dramatically, which could bring a much quicker end to the war in Ukraine than they want. That's why this conflict, it echoes far beyond the Middle East. If Russia can't sustain pressure on Ukraine, that conflict is going to come to an end sooner rather than later. This is a chain reaction. One move or one series of moves triggers ripple effects across multiple fronts. With a weakened Iran, Russia loses their drone pipeline. China loses oil access. We have Gulf states coalescing against Iran, despite the fact that they have common interests in terms of their Islamic theocratic doctrines. And I mentioned this before. 10 or 15 years ago, you would have never seen Islamic countries lining up against another one in that region on the side of the United States, or at the very least, not against the United States. President Trump made that happen. The Abraham Accords and this attack on Iran, which triggered them to attack other states. I still don't understand why they did it other than to cause chaos. But that chaos has just aligned everyone against them. And so this has been, when you take a step back, realizing that nobody really wants war. Obviously, nobody wants that. Nobody wants global conflict. Nobody wants to see our soldiers in harm's way. But when you take a step back and look at it objectively, this has been a brilliant, brilliant move. And regardless of what happens, whether Democrats end up taking over in the midterms and in 2028, regardless of what happens, history, especially if this plays out the way it looks like it's going to, history is going to look so favorably on Donald Trump and this administration. Because the realignment of the Middle East, I mean, for forever, people have been saying, what do you want to see? You want to see peace in the Middle East. For the first time in my lifetime, that is a very distinct possibility. A very distinct possibility. And 10 years ago, 15 years ago, nobody would have ever thought that that was possible. So, like I said, Iran is the linchpin. You destroy that linchpin and the whole structure crumbles. And given the way things have been going, there's no, I just refuse to believe that they didn't have this as a possible outcome when they kicked this off. President Trump, as I said before, is a big picture thinker. He has a plan and he wants to see it through. And I suspect that in the 4 years when Biden was in office, he had his team planning and mapping out all kinds of strategies, including this one, to make this happen. What we're seeing play out is not something that you can just throw together. This took planning. This took strategy, and not something that you could even throw together in 6 months or a year. This is something that they have been planning for a very long time. Now, am I saying that this is guaranteed to happen, guaranteed to be a success? No. No. I mean, anything could happen. Terror attacks, some kind of retaliation, further proxy wars, unanticipated economic outcomes. Nobody can really know for sure. But it does look pretty good so far with what we know. This was not just a military strike campaign. This was not just some attack. This was a geopolitical gambit. Iran is where energy, competition between great powers, and regional stability collide. And Iran is facing rockets and bombs, but the consequences are global. And so I am optimistic that this is going to work out well in our favor. And you should be too. All right, y'all. I do want to get a word in from our sponsor. And our sponsor for today's show is going to be a shameless plug for the SHR Media Shop. So if you want to support this network and rep your favorite shows, head over to the SHR Media Shop. You'll find shirts for all the guys' shows and the official SHR mug and the limited edition 250 Reasons to Read Source Documents t-shirt. This is a fantastic shirt because defending liberty starts with understanding the documents that created it. So celebrate 250 years of liberty and remember why it matters. Get SHR Media and just click on the banner at the top of the page, or you can go to missionreadymen.com and just to click on the 7 Armors shop and click shop, SHR Media Shop, excuse me, and you will get there and you can see all of the great designs that we have for all the guys' shows. So go ahead and check that out. missionreadymen.com, shop, SHR Media Shop. All right, y'all. I am Big E, and you are watching or listening to the Mission Ready Men briefing right here on the SHR Media Network, where you can catch our great lineup. We have Sackhead Sean with The Edge of Liberty every Monday and Wednesday at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. Jersey Joe with The Reaver of Common Sense every Monday and Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. BZ with the Berserk Bobcat Saloon every Tuesday and Thursday at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. And the new guy, Lyle Armstrong, Beer and Bullstein every Friday and Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Please check that out. His first shows have been fantastic. You do not want to miss them. You don't want to miss any of them. We are at 1,170 subscribers, I believe, 1,180 subscribers. So thank you all for that. Thank you all for liking and subscribing to the channel. We really appreciate it. So head over to the SHR Media YouTube channel and check out all of the great shows. Subscribe to them all and pray that we continue this breakthrough this year. and reach as many people as we possibly can. And now back to the briefing. And before we move on, I wanted to pay tribute to Lou Holtz. Lou Holtz passed away yesterday at the age of 89. He was an amazing football coach, but an even better man. When he was in his heyday as a coach, I wasn't really paying a whole lot of attention to college football. I knew who he was. I knew that in 1988 he won the national championship with Notre Dame. I was a sports fanatic, so I knew it, but that wasn't one of the sports that I followed intently. But as he got up in years and he retired from coaching and he got into speaking out on political matters, I realized just how great a guy he was. And he was a great man of faith, devout Catholic, and pretty much in any appearance that he was on, he always talked about his faith, and he always talked about his love for Jesus Christ. And so his impact is going to ripple for generations to come, not just with the athletes that he coached and the legacy left at Notre Dame, but the legacy he leaves in the country as a whole. And so, RIP, Coach. All right. Let's see. We have so much to get. Bill Clinton, he testified in front of the House Oversight Committee, and it was a deposition on Jeffrey Epstein. And I know that okay, sorry, I saw something that didn't look right, but everything is good. So he was in the House Oversight Committee, and one clip, there were a couple of big things that happened, but one clip pretty much went viral for all the wrong reasons if you're a Clinton or a Clintonista. So let's just go ahead and take a look at it, and then we'll talk about it, because this was this was crazy and creepy. Now you can't really hear it, and I'm going to resume playing in a second, but excuse me. He is looking at pictures from the Epstein files, and he is having a blast reminiscing based on these pictures. Just look at his face.
Okay.
Mr. President, we have about 5 minutes remaining in the majority's first hour, so I just want to ask you some questions related to the crimes committed by.
So even his lawyer, who tried to take those pictures away from him, She knew. She knew what was going on. She knew the camera was there. She knew this was going to be a moment that was going to stick. And he didn't care. And even she was laughing, which I kind of find a little interesting. That 10-second video is going to last for a very, very long time. Now, his political career obviously is over. It's not anything that's going, I mean, and he's old. It's not going to affect them to the extent that it may have had this happen earlier on in his career or their lives. But it's still shocking. It's still shocking. Well, shocking may not be the right word. It's still creepy. And it still is quite obvious why he felt such a need to review those images. He sat for hours talking about the Epstein files and all of that. And I know people in the chat are gonna be like, "Oh, you're finally talking about the Epstein files." I'm really not. I'm really not. Which we've seen some innuendo. We've seen some things that are completely circumstantial. But if there is actionable evidence that can lead to people being arrested and indicted and charged and all the rest of it, then let's have it. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot there. Obviously, I haven't reviewed all 3 or 4 million pages of documents, so maybe there is that I just haven't seen. But somebody's reviewed it all, and here we are. And the former Prince Andrew, and the other one over in Great Britain who were arrested, they weren't arrested because of what they found in these files. They were arrested for committing crimes over there, having to do with their time in public office. So we'll see. But Clinton, he spent time with Epstein. There was one other, I don't have the clip. I couldn't find the clip in time. There was one clip where he was asked if he had ever lied under oath. And he said no. And it's like, and I wasn't even really paying attention. I heard it in the background when I was doing something else. And I was like, well, wait a minute. You were impeached for lying under oath. And you just lied in a deposition. So we probably need to this guy. But at the end of the day, there's not a whole other thing that out during this thing. That is this. And sorry about that. I saw something else that didn't look right. If I'm spinning, I apologize. I'm not sure exactly what is going on with that. My connection seems to be okay, but nevertheless, let's press on, because this is going to be awkward for a lot of people. And this is Clinton pretty much exonerating the guy that everybody wants to see go down as a result of these Epstein files.
I hate this, but because I don't believe I should inject anything. But I do not want to leave the impression, but since there was no follow-up question, the president never, this is 20-something years ago, never said anything to me to make me think he was involved in anything improper with regard to Epstein either. He just didn't. That's the truth. As I said earlier, the only conversation I had with President Trump about this was in the early 2000s.
So for all of the yammering that people have done about releasing the files, because the only reason they want it is to get Trump. They've had these files available for the entire Biden presidency, and nobody said a peep. And now, because they think that there may be a possibility that they can get Trump on something, now they want all these files released. And so when people talk about wanting justice for the victims and all of that, if that were true, you would have been just as vocal then when Trump wasn't in office. But you weren't. So shut up. But so Clinton, he pretty much debunked the last of, I think, the talking points that that people have in terms of wanting to get Trump. I mean, Trump was not deeply tied to Epstein in any way. He removed him from to put it there. Inappropriate with minors and all of that. There's just nothing there. If there were, he would have been arrested and thrown in jail long before Clinton sat for this deposition, because they have been trying for so long to get him. If there was anything there, it would have come out. And anyone with a half a firing neuron knows this. When the facts show up, and we see this all the time, when the facts show up, the carefully constructed narratives suddenly fall apart. The viral clip is little more than political entertainment. The real story is so much bigger than that. Epstein built a network that reached into politics, finance, media. He had his tentacles all over the global elites, and somehow he was able to keep operating, despite President Trump at the time trying to get him in trouble with the police. And yet somehow that translates into Orange Man bad. But nobody stopped him, and that doesn't happen by accident. There were people more powerful than President Trump at the time who had an interest in keeping him out. And so whoever those people are, we want to see them brought to justice, obviously. Whoever his other predator friends are, if they're in these files and there is actionable evidence to go after them, we want to know who they are. And for all the people saying just release everything, we've seen what happens when you release information that's not evidence. Ro Khanna released the names of 4 men that had absolutely nothing to do with it. Jazzy Crockett, she released the names of people who had nothing to do with it, and then they had to deal with the fallout from that. That's why it has been important to do this carefully, methodically, and make sure that innocent people are not affected. But, you know, details. Who cares who gets hurt, right? Who cares about the collateral damage? As long as President Trump gets it in the end. All right. I've pretty much had enough of that. I want to get back to this is not going all the way back to what's going on with Operation Epic Fury, but it does touch on it tangentially. And it has to do with our Second Amendment. Sorry about that. It never fails, does it? American Pravda, while they're arguing about the strikes and everything that's going on surrounding that, something else is happening in Iran. Protesters have repeatedly taken to the streets in Iran against the regime. And the regime responds in the same way every single time. Mass arrests, mass executions, machine guns, crackdowns. the regime held the weapons and the people held protest signs. And tyrannies do not tolerate armed citizens. They can't afford to. Which is why the left in this country is so bent on taking away our guns. Because they're the tyrants. You don't have to look any further back than COVID to know that that's true. They locked us down. They forced people to take experimental jabs with experimental substances that now we know has had ridiculous effects on our health. People were not allowed to visit their family members in nursing homes. They weren't allowed to be with them as they passed away. They weren't allowed to hold funerals for them for months. Meanwhile, criminals like George Floyd got multiple funerals with all kinds of celebrities and elites in attendance. But that's not what this is about. I just said that by way of illustrating what tyranny looks like. And going back to what happened in Iran, the Second Amendment was never about hunting. It was never about sport. It was always about power and who holds it and who holds it in check. The founders understood that, well, they understood something that modern elites on some level refuse to believe, but they understand it perfectly well. Governments can become tyrannical. And as much as they don't want to admit it on the left, they are the tyrants. And when governments are allowed to become tyrannical, an unarmed population is completely helpless. And so imagine if in this country they somehow are able to, if not repeal the Second Amendment, render it completely toothless. What do you think the American left is going to do if they're able to achieve that? We've seen, and I've written about this many times, we've seen what happens when tyrannies disarm populations. Mao in China, Russia, Germany, Uganda. Pick a tyrannical government and I'll show you a population that was decimated by genocide. Tyrannies, they disarm the people first. But freedom trusts the people with arms. And just so, that's not just firearms, just so that we're clear. I know people don't like to talk about that a lot, but arms encompasses staffs, clubs, hatchets, knives. These are all things that the founders had at their disposal during the revolution. These are all things that they used in hand-to-hand combat. These are all things that they used in self-defense. Obviously, firearms is the most effective tool, and that's what we talk about most, but make no mistake, all of that is encompassed in the right to keep and bear arms. And so you think once they get rid of the guns that they won't make it illegal for you to carry a knife? You think they won't make it illegal for you to carry a walking stick or a cane? These people are tyrants. They just haven't been able to realize their goals yet. But I went off on another tangent there. The first line of defense is not, it is a defense, but the first line is not rifles. It's voters. And the Texas primaries showed that again this week. And we'll get into that here in a minute. I got a little time, and I will get into that because there's a lot to break down there. But candidates who weaken, who don't support the Second Amendment, need to face severe backlash, and gun owners need to vote and organize. Oh boy. I want to, before we get started, I just saw something in the chat, so I want to acknowledge the chat. Thank you all for being here. Whether you agree with me or not, thank you. We appreciate it. We appreciate your views. We appreciate the debate, and I want to thank the moderators for being in there and keeping everybody in check. We really appreciate it. So thank you all for that. But getting back to it. Candidates who are weak on the Second Amendment need to face some serious backlash. And the gun owners who support the Second Amendment need to vote, need to organize, and reward the candidates who stand with them in favor of the Second Amendment, because it's not just a right. It should be one of the most powerful voting blocks in this country. And for reasons that I just cannot fathom, it's not. I don't get it. But one of the other safeguards that a lot of people forget is local authority. The sheriffs in your counties are not, they're not federal agents. They are elected by the people in their county, and they are answerable to them. And we've seen a number of sheriffs across the country who have said point blank, we are not going to enforce these anti-constitutional laws. Now, that doesn't mean that the governors of these states won't send in the state police, or mayors in blue cities won't send in the municipal police. I mean, it happens. But when it comes to the county sheriffs, their authority flows up from the voters, not down from Washington or City Hall or the governor's mansion, whatever the case may be. The sheriff answers to the people who elect them. And so we need to keep that in mind in this midterm election season as well. Because Iran and places in this country as well show what happens when power is centralized. And I know there are a lot of people out there who don't believe in centralized government. That is one of the things that libertarians espouse that I actually agree with. There's not a whole lot when it comes to libertarians that I agree with, but that is one of them. But again, Iran shows what happens when power is centralized and the regime holds all the firepower and the people have nothing except their voices. And America was built differently. America is unique in that respect, among others. But the power in this country is divided, as it should be, politically, legally, and physically. And as I said before, in Iran, the regime holds the guns and the people hold protest signs. And that power imbalance is what led to what we're seeing happen right now. And as long as Americans still have the American spirit, we, the people, hold the ballot, but we also hold the rifles. And that system was not an accident. That was by design. And it's one of the reasons that this country has stayed free as long as it has, coming up on 250 years. And if we're not careful, we could allow that to slip away. And I, for one, do not want to let that happen. Now, I mentioned the Texas primaries earlier. And the primaries in Texas, there were there were some political earthquakes. Some of them I was absolutely here for. We had a rising Democrat star got knocked down to earth. A Republican scumbag incumbent got knocked out. And several other major races are headed for a runoff. It's not just about the results, though. It's about what those results say about where the voters actually are. In some respects, the political map in Texas got rearranged. And I've talked about this quite a bit. And there seems to, based on those results on Tuesday, there's some hope for, well, I talk about the Islamization of Texas a lot. Being my former state, it's something that is near and dear to my heart after spending 20 years there. The results give me hope that the voters will rise up and stop this Islamization. But that's a story for another time. But Jasmine Crockett, Jazzy Ratchet, as I like to call her, she got duped into, let's be honest, she got duped into running for Senate by Republicans. They put out some polling that showed that she could be the front runner for the Democratic nomination for Senate, and she fell for it, and she went for it in Puerto Rico. Now, you know that is nothing more a concession, a clean concession. She started raising questions about the vote. And I have been reliably told that when you start denying election results, you are a threat to democracy. But I haven't heard anyone on the American Pravda say that about her, which is curious. But there were some issues with voters being confused about where to go and stuff like that. She is. I don't get her at all. I had her video. Where did it go? All right, I'll just pull it up again because this was, oh, Jazzy. This was absolutely, this was on brand for her. Without a doubt, this was on brand for her. This is her announcing that, well, let's just take a look at it.
So that's my news, is that we're not going to have election results tonight, in my opinion, based upon what specifically is taking place in Dallas County. Unfortunately, this is what Republicans like to do.
This is what Republicans like to do. She ran against a Democrat.
And so they specifically targeted Dallas County, and I think we all know why. So I want you to enjoy yourselves. Be back to
So she's just all over the road with this because there's absolutely no way. It makes no sense, but nobody pushed back on. Nobody has pushed back on this. Nobody has said that's ridiculous. What evidence do you have of that? Why? How could Republicans have done this? Nothing. So there's that. But one of the best parts of the night was Dan Crenshaw. And I haven't really seen anything from him. Since he got fired by the people. But this this picture is one of my favorites because Eye Patch McCain he just looks pitiful in this picture. Oh my goodness, he's gone. And I could not be happier about it. He has been, and I'll be honest, when he first hit the scene, I was impressed, and I thought that he was going to make a great representative. Navy SEAL, lost an eye in combat, just came off as a great hero, came off as a great Republican, and it didn't take long at all for him to, I don't want to say get corrupted, because I think based on how quickly it happened, he was always this way, and he was just saying whatever he had to say to get elected. And now, on his $175,000 salary, his stock trades are outperforming those of Nancy Pelosi, and he's worth $4.5 million. But he got fired, and that that is absolutely glorious. I mean, he's just a piece of human refuse, honestly. I mean, even before he threatened to kill Tucker Carlson, who I have no love for either, by the way, but even before he threatened to kill Tucker Carlson, he was way off the reservation, and he's proven himself to be not worthy, and he got fired. So that is awesome. But the biggest fight is headed to a runoff, and that is the Senate primary between John Cornyn and Ken Paxton. Neither one of them got a majority. So that means on May 26th, there will be another vote, where another runoff, where Texas will decide whether or not they want Rhino, anti-Trump, anti-Second Amendment Cornyn, or a fighter like Ken Paxton. And he was, and President Trump has said that, and I don't know if it's happened yet since we've been on the air, but President Trump said that he is going to endorse one of them, and he wants the other one to drop out. If you're not going to endorse one, then just stay out of it. Just stay out of it and let the chips fall where they may. Because if he falls for Cornyn's shtick of, you see the ads he put out where he talks about how he's voted with President Trump 95% of the time, or whatever it is. That's a lie. That is a complete and utter lie. His Liberty score, if you look at either Heritage or one of the other organizations that scores votes, he gets an F. John Cornyn gets an F. He is the epitome of Rhino. He is not a conservative. He is not a friend to conservatives. He is not a friend to the Second Amendment. He is there for himself. And if the district he was from was Democrat, he would have run as a Democrat. If he thought he could win as a Democrat, that's what he would have run as. But Ken Paxton was he was on the phone on Real America's Voice, and this was his interview. Check this out.
Biden on bringing Afghan refugees to settle here without vetting them. But he's been against Trump in both of his elections, said he shouldn't run last time, that his day had passed. And, of course, he fought him on the border wall. He's been an amnesty guy. Everything that Trump stood for, John Cornyn fought, but he was a big help to Joe Biden. The people of Texas, at least the Republicans, would like something different.
I'm going to play part of that again because I don't think it was.
Yes, it was, and
it was on.
Spent $5 million versus 100, and there've only been 2 U.S. senators that I know of that lost a primary in the last 40 or so years because the finance rules are so rigged in favor of the incumbents and so limited for challengers. But it's I think Richard Lugar lost and Bob Bennett lost to Mike Lee, so it's a pretty unusual thing to take on an incumbent and actually do well against them, and we're going to do really well in the runoff.
Yeah, I think he's right. I think we are going to do well in the runoff. President Trump needs to just stay out of it. He needs to just stay out of it. If you're going to sit there and say, I'm going to make an announcement on who I'm going to endorse, just endorse whoever it is. And it should be Paxton, honestly. It should be Paxton. Paxton has been a true conservative. I know people have their issues with him. I know he's been put through the ringer in terms of with legal issues, and he's had some personal issues as well. I get that, but at the end of the day, he is a much better candidate than Cornyn ever will be. So one of the things that I have talked about quite a bit is turnout, Republican turnout for when it comes to these votes. And when I was looking at the voter turnout data, I was a little disappointed because so many more people voted for the Democrats than Republicans in total numbers. But it turns out that that was a near record turnout for Democrats in Texas. And Republicans, in terms of total numbers, have historically outperformed Democrats in these situations. There are nearly 19 million registered voters in the state of Texas, and only 2.8 million people voted in the primary. And Democrats only had 200,000 more votes than Republicans. So when you consider that Democrats had a near record turnout and Republicans had, on average, and maybe slightly better than they usually do, that's not bad. Not bad in the grand scheme of things. So, and the other thing, if we zoom out, Republicans tend to do better in general elections as opposed to, in terms of turnout, tend to do better in general elections than primaries for some reason. And I don't understand it. I really don't. But we deal in reality here, and this is the reality of the situation. So Texas is actually looking pretty good. And if we can get a hold of Abbott and get him away from the Islamic money and start getting rid of some of these Islamic centers that are popping up all over the place in Texas, we could see things turn around. But I'm running out of time. I wanted to talk about North Carolina as well. Michael Whatley and Roy Cooper are going to run for, or are running for Senate in North Carolina. We got to pray Michael Whatley wins. Roy Cooper he's another Democrat piece of human refuse, honestly. And I know that doesn't sound very Christian of me, and I have to repent for that, but it's the truth. So these primary elections, they are generating headlines, but there is a real fight ahead. We have the runoff elections coming in May. We need to make sure that we turn out for that. And the general election in November, we need to make an all-out push for that as well. Because the lesson we always talk about, but never seem to learn, is that Twitter doesn't win elections. Commentary doesn't win elections. Outrage doesn't win elections. Voting wins elections. And so we have to make sure that elections are won by the side that shows up. Period, end of story. If you stay home, you elect the other side. Staying home is a vote. It's a vote for the other side. And so we got to make sure that we get out there and vote. All right, y'all. What we've talked about today, when America acts with strength, the reaction always reveals a lot more than the action itself. You can see very plainly who stands for the country and who doesn't. Operation Epic Fury didn't just rock Iran's regime. It exposed something a lot closer to home. Again, because if you've been paying attention, you already knew this. But the left does not believe in America's best interests. And that's something that we need to remember when these elections come around. When they tell you that they're acting in America's best interest, you need to understand, remember this, and keep in mind that they absolutely is it for this briefing. I ran a, but that's okay. We're to fill airtime. We have a message. We want to equip Christian men and spread the gospel of Jesus Christ and carry the banner of faith, freedom, and hope into future generations. And so if anything that we said matters to you, don't just watch, but share it. Subscribe to the channel. Share these episodes. Bring another man into this fight. And if you want to wear what you stand for, head over to missionreadymen.com. Hit Shop 7 Armors and check out all of the great designs we have there about bold faith, true grit, and unapologetic patriotism. And remember, when seconds count, the police are only minutes away, but the Lord is right there with you. So keep your prayers going up and your head on a swivel. God bless.